I'm very pleased to be able to speak to Mr. K.K. Modi, the family whose family owns Modi Enterprises and various brothers doing different parts of the businesses, and whose own focus is on the tobacco industry and has a very good feel of the ground in India and how the current government's policies are changing the industry. Thank you very much for speaking to me today, Mr. Modi. So first question I would ask is, how much of what the current government is doing is reaching you and your business?
Well, the government is changing beyond recognition the old way of doing business. So people really don't know how the new things will fall. Because if you look at India, we made a mark in IT business. China made a mark in manufacturing. Now India want to make a mark in manufacturing.
Isn't that a policy that was pursued at the time of independence? The Nehru government did pursue industrialization, but it failed.
This is very true. This is what has happened. But the government is now trying to get out from, they were trying to broker how the industry reaches the masses, how the jobs are created. Now, if the government is not intervening, then I think India has the wherewithal, because a lot of young people are joining the workforce, and there is already a moment on growth. So we think we will increase the rate of growth substantially.
That was true about the IT, the software industry, and the industries that the government did not touch. But in a lot of manufacturing, it's actually tied to government policy, demand, land acquisition, and infrastructure building. How fast do you think it's moving, and how real is this development of becoming a manufacturing hub?
I think the manufacturing costs now in India are cheaper than China. Logistic cost is also improving. India has now growth, and therefore investment is coming in. So I think with the inflow of foreign capital and easing of the government controls, we will move faster.
Your business has been a beneficiary of the domestic consumption in India. How sensitive is your business to inflation and logistics cost and infrastructure in India? And have you been seeing improvements that have been reflected in your own business?
Right now, our international business, particularly exports, are growing much faster.
And it's specifically to which part of the world?
I think what we are finding that we don't have enough capacity.
Okay.
And Indian goods have a very good economics if you export. In fact, some of our companies may make more money in exporting than selling domestically.
Such as?
Chemicals, pharmaceuticals, high-tech manufacturing. In all these industries, the man productivity is increasing. There are very few strikes, and people are concerned to preserve jobs. And you can find educated people. So we can manufacture goods to the international standard.
And are you also a beneficiary of the growing trade agreements taking place in both in Asia as well as in Africa?
I think trade agreements are playing an important role, but there is a fear that as the world economy slows down and there is a lot of refugees or terror, whether the uh, ease of doing international business will increase or reduce, because there is tendency, because of refugee problems in Europe, they are thinking of building against walls where people cannot easily move.
Are you or were you a beneficiary of trade barriers in the past that kept India as a closed market?
Very much. But as the rupee has depreciated, all of a sudden we find that our international business is becoming more profitable. So the decline in value of rupee and lessening of control and removal of barriers is helping Indian industry. And in fact, right is the time is right now to expand the capacity. But there is a decline in the commodity prices. Steel is low price, lowest. Oil is low. Copper is low. So there is a slowing of international demand. But Indian competitiveness is better.
At the same time, I noticed that you are actively involved in a number of federations, trade federations, and also business federations, both in India and in the region. What are some of the most important themes that you are pushing personally in some of these federations that you are member of?
I think right now the Indian businesses are pushing that government reduce the control. And luckily, day before yesterday, there was a conference on startups, and the Prime Minister has announced that no inspector will visit for first 3 years any new company which starts. So our big limiting factor has been the Inspector Raj, government intervention. And if the government intervention reduces, then it is good for industry.
One of the government interventions that was not well understood by foreigners very much, and foreigners doing business with India, has been the tax regime. And it still comes across as somewhat opaque in that the tax liabilities of foreigners generating revenue in India is not clear. And maybe they're clearing the process, but it's understood differently by different suppliers and so on. How do you think that's coming across? And do you think there should be greater clarity on the tax front?
I think easing in the tax pay and clarity in tax pay is the need. The taxmen are very, very jealous. They want to maximize the revenue. In the process, they are scaring away the people.
Was that always like that, or is it something that is a temporary phenomenon, do you think that?
I think it is more so in last government. After the government of Congress is gone, and there is a very big move to control corruption and black money. And that is why the taxmen have become too aggressive. I think Prime Minister Modi,
Not related in any way.
no, not related with us,
but are you from the same
hero for us,
Okay.
is going to move in that direction. And already he has announced that paying of taxes should be easy. And we should not be overzealous to protect the government revenue, because it is always possible to have two interpretations for anything. And the taxmen are now interpreting the laws very differently, and their government is going back for many years retrospectively,
Yes.
which is very scary. But I am sure good sense will prevail, and we will reverse the situation soon.
You appear to be very confident. So what are some of the plans that you have put in place to take your business to the next level? Maybe are you looking at financing? Are you talking to investors to help you go forward? Or-
I think most of the businesses which are not in a very heavy burden of debt, and we are one of them, are right now with the low interest rate and ease of money coming and opportunities which are coming by Indo-Chinese collaboration will make the investment go, because Chinese businessmen are also now collaborating with Indians.
Is that the biggest? It's a very big phenomenon. You see that?
I think it is a beginning of. We started the first joint venture with the Chinese companies last year in manufacture of very sophisticated chemical products. And many new Chinese companies are coming forward. Only problem is that we are accustomed to work with European and Americans. We don't understand the Chinese mindset. And Chinese are not understanding Indian mindset.
What is the most difficult part that is not connecting at the moment?
I think China's people have very low trust because they have heard so many things, and there is a much higher trust between American and Indian ventures, European and Indian ventures. And Chinese are not accustomed to joint ventures. They rather go either 100%, but they are too afraid to work in India alone. So they require a joint venture. But there is a deficit of trust.
And the Japanese also take the joint venture route quite well.
Well, Japanese are better, but Japanese are not so aggressive right now as the Chinese have. And Chinese have very good technology, and they had good marketing connections all over the world. And the cost of production in China is going up, and environment controls are increasing. So there is a case of locating some of the production in India. And right now the largest telephone company in China is going to put a very, very large telephone manufacturing facility in India. And
This is Huawei? And
Pardon?
Is this Huawei?
Yes, they have announced.
Yeah, okay. And but Huawei is doing that in a lot of different countries. They're very aggressive, and especially they're looking at countries that don't have a Western bias, because the technology has a difficulty in some countries.
I think certain improvement in Chinese technology will have to be made. But China is capable to do so. We just built a plant for carbon disulfide, a joint venture with Chinese, where Government of India mandated that there will be zero discharge. And it is the first plant in the world which we have been able to commission, where the Chinese old technology have been modified with the help of Chinese engineering companies.
And all of that fabricated in India.
Well, not as much as Europeans will fabricate. Chinese have yet to use more Indian components and Indian labor. But that will come, because language is a big barrier. But future is joint ventures between China and India.
And so you see more and more of such collaborations taking place. Does that result in some kind of technology transfer, you think?
I think when we go to Chinese company, most of the Chinese company have not done joint ventures. And they are excited to do joint ventures. But they still have to understand rules of engagement, because Chinese companies have technology, but that technology requires a little bit of more sophistication, which they can do, and Chinese are hungry. Not so much Japanese and Americans.
Partially they're hungry because they are also being funded well, especially from their own banks, and that's why they can go to market more aggressively. So the funding is there for Chinese companies. If it wasn't for the funding, in some ways they would be almost on par as the Americans and the.
Well, Chinese move what the government want to do, and recently Chinese government has announced that they are going to create a monetary instrument or fund which will rival World Bank. And I am sure this new development will make Chinese companies more aggressive, because the government will give them funds with ease, not so much restriction as the Western companies face. So I think China will find a way out of this slowdown by also collaborating with a lower cost economy like India.
And you think that is what will drive the industrialization of India?
I think so far we never thought that China can be our partner. We always thought that the technology will come from US, Europe, and to some extent from Japan. But now Chinese companies are becoming aggressive, and they are finding need to have low cost manufacturing base and modern plants which are pollution free. And for that, they don't want to rebuild the plants only in China. They might be doing that so.
Right.
But if the Chinese government give them support, then they will have the funds, and Chinese have enough foreign currency.
Right. What about joint ventures outside India with Chinese companies? And I think that you're very strong, I'm sure, in Africa and so on.
I think they are very strong in Africa, but we ourselves are not
domestic.
Exploring that possibility, because we see all the opportunity in India, because we can manufacture in India, and with the technologies which Western countries do not want to give to us.
You seem to be a believer in Made in India.
Very much so. Make in India, which is a phrase which our Prime Minister created.
Yes.
Not made in India, but make in India.
Make in India, that's right.
And make in India means that you not only manufacture, but you also improve the standard of living. You built India.
Yes.
So you should do both. And India is the first country in the world to ask the profitable companies to invest 2% of their profit into social responsibility project.
Yes. How do you think about social responsibility, given the fact that you're in a business that, it's a health risk in some ways? Do you see yourself diversifying? Do you see yourself using the retail network that you have to push other things in?
I think a very big opportunity for us is re-educating India.
Tell us about the Indian consumer.
The Indian, not only consumer, but Indian farmer, Indian manufacturing,
yes,
they require to have the modern knowledge, because modern knowledge is becoming knowledge which use computers, digital technology, even farmers, even money transfer. Now, our most of the population have not been exposed to that. And that requires also education or re-educating the people who have already studied and finished are working.
Yes.
So we have started a program that we are going to many companies and going to their facilities. So the workers or managers or people can get a new degree and we can give the education there. And we are also getting a lot of students from Africa. So I think India and China both will grow. And Chinese will use India, a neighbor of China, because we have young people. And Chinese adopted many years back one-child policy. So they are going to become more and more short of young people.
Yes, but at the same time, there are some, geopolitical issues that are foaming at all times. India seems to be not having forgotten that war in 1957, or rather that skirmish in a way, because it was really never a war. And somehow the Indian politicians keep reminding the population, whereas the Chinese seems to have moved on,
I share with you, when we made the first joint venture with Chinese, Narendra Modi, who is the present Prime Minister, was Chief Minister. And the Chinese partner were very, very nervous because we have the majority. And I took them to meet Mr. Modi. And Mr. Modi convinced them that India, anybody can go to court and court will not favor you because you are Indian. And most important thing he said, that I am fan of China. I will make sure Indians learn Chinese. And if you have any difficulty with your partner, just remind me that I met you and come to me. So I think the Prime Minister will try to bridge a gap.
he's already working at it.
He's working at it. People thought he's not going to meet Americans. He has visited many times.
Yes.
He will also forge partnership with Pakistan. And I think India
So win-win.
will extend a friendship hand to Chinese, particularly Mr. Modi's, because he believes that China had done wonderful things. And he praised a lot Chinese enterprise. So I think if Mr. Modi remains there for a long time, India and China will cooperate. The war is actually, the border is just a war for fighting. It's not a real issue.
How would you describe the current leadership? Is it right-wing and conservative? How is it able to capture the imagination of a more broad-based Indian population?
I don't think that he has won an election based upon Hindu philosophy or Hindu right wing. He won the election because people thought, and people still believe, he will make India prosperous. And that is the mandate he has. And he is working on that. And his biggest problem was the trust deficit. We have trust deficit with China, trust deficit with Pakistan, trust deficit with Bangladesh, trust deficit with the US. So he has taken upon himself to establish relationship with the leaders in these countries.
Right.
And that is very important.
Yes. Now, and final question, how is your company evolving and changing, and how confidently are you investing into the future? What are the milestones that you've set for yourself as a company?
I think we are very bullish. We think our entire enterprise we can grow at 25 to 30% per year, which will be a record breakthrough. And that is only possible if we have a stable government, a government which does not interfere, and the government moves to remove the fear of taxman, because the foreign countries, foreign businessmen don't want to face imprisonment, and they want to be treated on the rules which they can understand. And I am sure the government will correct this situation.
And you're making more money exporting than you are as an Indian company.
Right now, exporting is good business. I hope Indian business also improves. But Indian business is a little slow, and international business is very, very bullish and very profitable.
Thank you very much for speaking to me today.